Okay then, so we are sitting with Faizan and we're going to be just going over his final project idea. Now, we look at the tasks. Let's just explain what it is you'll be doing here. So, for task 1, you need to produce the proposal, a research portfolio, and now sit down for a recorded interview. Okay? So about learning outcomes, that's how I mark your work. So for the proposal and the schedule, you're able to identify and plan a creative media project and develop a creative media project within agreed parameters and a timescale. Okay? So those learning outcomes are covered also in the recorded interview. Okay? So this is also proof for posterity purposes of the idea, okay, beyond what we've got for the proposal, okay? Also, I'm more than happy to give you another opportunity after this interview to produce a second draft to your proposal and schedule, okay? I say that because that's not very good, okay? It's not showing your best work, okay? And I know that with perhaps a little bit more confidence, you'd be able to go jumping straight into this project proposal and be able to produce something of a high level, okay? But at this stage, to identify, you've been able to do as part of the project proposal. But for a schedule, you haven't been able to develop a creative media project within agreed parameters and timescale. So we have to go by what we've got here and whatever you produce as a second draft for this proposal, okay? I would recommend, as you go forward, that you don't neglect certain areas and you give yourself enough time to cover all of those aspects, okay? All right then, so beyond the project proposal, let's talk about what your project is. So explain to me what you want to produce.
So my project is about crime, not necessarily crime itself, but other types of crime. So obviously most crimes happened ages ago, like back in the 1970s, 80s and 1980s and 90s. However, I want to bring some light and shade back onto most of those crimes.
What crimes are you talking about specifically?
So like specifically like kidnapping and serial killers, like the murderers. Obviously, like it's probably the same thing, but obviously with me, I want to do like something.
What makes you, sorry, I just need to cut in there. What makes you think that you've got these things happening in the 70s and 80s? Do they not happen anymore?
They do happen now, but people don't take more of like, people don't be more attentive. But obviously, people in this generation should know what happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago, so they know what true crime really is, and that could actually happen nowadays as well. You think that you can just walk around the corner and think what happened to you, but you never know who could be around the corner. However, it's just trying to stay alert for people nowadays to, I know back then it was different, but obviously nowadays there's more violent people, our generation has gone more, it's grown, it's gone more bigger, and nowadays we have more updated technology. So if someone was to go missing, it would be easy to find them. However, I want to show people of this generation that even though that back then it happened, it could happen now, but now is more dangerous because people are more worthy and people are more like, they're more tenacious with what they do.
So specifically you want to talk about crime as a subject and talk to people about crime and its effect on society.
Yeah, so instead of someone saying, oh my god, I saw the news and someone got stabbed, tell me something I don't know, because some people get stabbed every day. If it was someone that went got kidnapped, now, like yesterday, if someone got kidnapped, then people would be helping to look for them and everything. Back then they helped, but nowadays people are so attached to their phones, so attached to the new stuff that's out, they don't really care. Only people who are close to the person would care. Like, it wouldn't spark Britain's, like, the whole of Britain's generation if someone went missing in the UK now, because even though back then no one really was attached to anything, it was just about working, studying, and just being a normal human being that's just on the earth with no. We had technology, but we didn't have all this like obsessed with the Kardashians or all this Olympics and everything. And we probably did have Olympics, but we weren't as obsessed with it as we are now, or anything else like the news like One Direction. We didn't have singers that people are obsessed with now.
But we had other things.
Yeah, we had other things, but those things weren't as important as the things that we have now. Like now we have people who are, back then 13-year-olds didn't have iPhones. Now 13-year-olds have
Okay,
iPhones.
I get that.
Yeah, so if a 13-year-old was to look on her phone and just see the crime, not the 13-year-old, 15-year-old was to look on their phone, see a crime. Back then, if a 15-year-old was to know about crime, they would do as much as they can to help the neighbourhood and to obviously help the environment. But now people just look at the crime on their phones and think, oh that's bad, and they text their friends and say, oh, did you hear what happened? This girl got kidnapped. I hope she's okay. But then even if they're close to them, they would still worry and still look for them. But they obviously use some new stuff that's out, like their phones, to contact people. Because nowadays people have Apple IDs in their phones, you can easily find them, but obviously they're clever. But that's not the point. The point is that even if someone got kidnapped these days, they wouldn't really like care about it as much as they did back then. So I want.
Okay, but think about it this way. Put yourself, like, let's take that 13-year-old. Okay, that 13-year-old can look on their phone and not want to help, like, stop a crime from happening or something like that. That's what you've just said to me. But if we compare that to like someone who's found out about a crime on TV, they're not necessarily in a situation to help.
No, I'm saying like, how like when like, okay, I'll give you an example. One time ago she went missing and then everyone in the neighbourhood didn't know about it, but when they knew about it, they started helping by putting posters up and everything.
These are that's a local situation.
Nowadays when it's on your phone, I'm just saying if someone read on their phone, 21-year-old girl got kidnapped near a house, and then if you read that you think, oh, that's around my area, I should be careful next time. That's what they're thinking it. But back then, obviously things have changed severely, but back then, if I was to read that on a newspaper, if I 2001, 2002, I'm sure when you were in high school then, obviously you would think, oh, well, I'm with a group of friends, I've just seen the newspaper, and then when your mum told you about it, but back then, it was more like of a help, like they would help you more because it doesn't have like technology like iPhones and everything, it doesn't have like these big YouTube posters and more police work out. Nowadays, because we've got more technology and more stuff to like find people who are go missing 10, 20 years ago and still not found to this day. They could be dead and in ditch anyway, but what I'm saying is, the real aspect of it is, when people are on their phones these days and on the news and newspapers, they do read it, but they would talk about it, but they wouldn't do their best to help, because nowadays people are like so obsessed with the way they dress, the way they look, their technology, their education, their jobs, going out to eat with their friends every day. They don't realise that the danger that could be around the corner for them. Like, you can wake up and you don't know what's going to happen to you. That's what this generation, when I say to you, if a 13-year-old in this generation, a 13-year-old now with an iPhone was to look at that, or like 15-year-old, it doesn't really matter, a teenager, because now back then teenagers didn't have that technology, and now we do. That's one thing that's like messing up the world really badly, technology, because everyone's only concerned about their phones. They find out the news on their phones. So if they were to find out about crime, then they think, oh, well, okay, I'm a teenager and I shouldn't worry, but then I do have to worry, because like, if it was a 13-year-old, and then on her phone a 13-year-old girl has gone missing, what if she thinks that could happen to her? Back then, they didn't really think that. They just cared about helping, because they didn't have the devices to help. So now I want to bring all the stuff that happened back then, most of the stuff.
Do you feel that now there are devices for civilians to help with crimes, to help like solve crimes and stuff?
Yeah, because
in what way?
In what way? For example, if a girl got kidnapped, you can just use her Apple ID password, or her mum, or whoever has an Apple ID password, and they can track her phone down. But then again, what if people are clever like that? They could turn it off That's just one example of how you can find them. But another example is that obviously like people can go out searching. It's a free country. You can go out in the fields looking for them. Calling the police would do some good. Okay, but if you want to put like a tag on or something, you have to remember that every single person in the world is different. But at the end of the day,
And I suppose if you've witnessed something, you could film it as well.
if I witnessed it, I wouldn't try to save them. I would maybe film it and show the police. But to be honest with you, no matter who it is, I think that if you witness a kidnap, back then, kidnappers were clever. They kidnapped at night, evening.
Like, look.
But nowadays, you can get stabbed in the middle of town, so anything can happen.
Okay, all right. I need to stop you there. All right. You've got this nice trail of thought, okay, which essentially, I don't know, if you were to pick out the main points that you're trying to make, would make for a nice structure to a certain film or audio production that you would like to produce, okay? But you are very much so just relying on your own thoughts and opinions, and it's not necessarily backed on research, okay? So, for example, every time you make the claim back then to nowadays, it's not necessarily true. It's just simply your perspective. And don't get me wrong, how old are you, Faisal?
18.
You're 18, okay? So there is a lot of information that you don't necessarily know about back then that you're essentially just making assumptions about, okay?
No, but I was right about the iPhone thing because obviously back then we didn't have really like a communication. But I'm not sure. Probably you were obviously alive. You were around back then. Sorry, I should say when you were in high school back in like 2001 maybe or 2002, and then maybe you obviously would have been in that era where.
Yeah, we didn't have phones that had cameras, but generally most people had phones. You know,
yeah,
you play
most
Snake
people,
on them.
exactly. Yeah, they had that. So nowadays, back then, if the police.
But you still don't find my phone options and things like that.
I know,
on the phone.
but if police were to contact us now, they could put it on the Bedfordshire Police website and we could see it on our phones, our new phones. Nowadays, that's what I mean. But obviously, I don't know everything. I do watch crime.
But people
videos.
communicate in different ways.
I know.
Though.
But then again, when it comes to crime and kidnapping, how are you going to communicate with the people? People are so clever, but then again, obviously, I don't know.
Look, let's stop for a moment, okay? What you need to do is make it very, very clear what your subject is about. And I think at this point in time, we've got project title, crime. And I don't necessarily think this is actually about crime. I think this is almost like a social study or something like that you actually want to look at. You want to essentially like...
I use technology as an example for my crime, because that's another way to...
how long is this project going to be? And what is this product going to be?
When I spoke to you about technology, that was just an example.
I know, that's just one subject.
Yeah.
So that brings me to my next question, because if that's just one subject that you're going to cover, and you've got so much to say about that, what other subjects are you going to cover?
I'm not going to take every single thing and put it into one big project. I'm just taking out the important bits, but the most important thing is to make people aware of how bad crime is, and it could happen now. Even though we know that it could happen now, it could happen to anyone. Don't think that you're safe because you're not. Do you know what I mean?
Alright. Let's have a look. A nice simple bit of research that you could produce is... Okay, crime rate UK 2000 to 2017. Let's see what we get. It's over a 17-year period. Crime rises biggest in a decade. 10% in crime, rise in crime. Historical crime data. Okay, so you've got specific recording from 1898 to 2001. Let's just have a look at that. Now, this is a summary of recorded crime data. Okay. wow, there's an awful lot of information here, and it might be a little bit difficult for us at this situation to essentially work out. Wow, I mean, it's difficult for me to make head or tail. Let's say, so you specifically were looking at kidnapping?
Yes.
Okay, alright, so let's have a look at kidnapping. So, homicide including note, attempted murder, threat, or conspiracy to murder, child destruction, causing death, more serious wounding or other accident, endangering, other wounding, serious wounding. These are all violent crimes at this point in time. Assault, child abduction.
That could work. Child abduction.
Yeah,
Same
okay.
thing.
Yeah, so if you were to specifically look at that,
Are these a number of people that are those number?
the number of crimes reported on, okay? Abduction could work, but to be honest with you, I just want you to not necessarily like focus on like child abduction and like getting into paedophilia and stuff like that. I think it just might be a little bit too heavy. Into like. But anyway, okay, let's just use one as an example, okay? So wouldn't it look great if you actually had some evidence
What's
of
coining?
using something like this? What?
Coining.
Coining?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know off the top of my head. So, abduction. Abduction, okay, so we missed it, alright?
Yeah.
So let's try and work this out then.
I know a few abductions, so.
Okay, alright, so in 2000, reported abductions were at 262, I believe this is how it works. 2000 to 2001, there was 262 accounts of abduction, reported accounts, okay? Whereas back in the day, there's a lot less reported, okay? So crime is forever on the increase, okay? You can see that number increase, but that's not necessarily down to the amount of crimes that are committed. It's just the amount of crimes that are reported on and actually, what's the word?
But why would people
Registered.
waste their time to waste police's time when they know that wasting the police's time is unacceptable?
What?
You would report the crime.
You would report the crime?
Yeah, but why would someone, someone might be drunk on the phone one day, be like, oh, someone did something, and they could report it as a crime. So half of these could be just a hoax. They can't be real.
It doesn't, look, again, that is you specifically
Making assumptions about
making
why-
assumptions is what's going on. You can't have something like this relying on your assumptions, okay? Opinions are one thing, but your opinions need to be backed up with some sort of fact, okay? What we need to do in this interview is essentially agree upon a product that you're actually going to create and then a time scale, okay? You then need to go off and actually create the production schedule for that,
The
okay?
thing is, yeah, with that production schedule with every project, yeah, is that I do it, but when it comes to the point of me doing it, I end up finishing whatever I need to do in that time beforehand. So there's no, and then I end up like, I have to wait until it actually finishes, even though I finished before my actual production schedule last time. Do you get what I mean?
Faizan, I don't necessarily agree, because there are often times when you don't actually finish on time.
Yeah, I know.
And this time, you definitely need to finish on time, okay? So, how can you use the time that you have remaining wisely, okay? For example, you've got a lot of research to do, you need to create like a script or at least a selection of monologues. You need to then look into other things that you have to produce technically, yeah? So, are you going to be speaking to camera? Are you going to be changing the backgrounds using green screen, or are you going to set locations and like choose locations? Are you going to be recording the sound directly through the camera? You need to edit all this together, you need to apply motion graphics. There's lots and lots of things that you need to do, okay? And you can use your time wisely.